Good afternoon and welcome to the Idle Champions Weekly Live Stream. My name is Dylan, and I am alive. I am coming to you live from beautiful Victoria, BC, Canada. Currently enjoying the beautiful orange skies that come with smoke from wildfires heading up into the stratosphere around us. Hi and welcome. I have a guest coming on later today. A very special guest, Dr. B from Take This and Clinical Role. However, he's joining me at 2 p.m. Pacific. So instead, I am going to be, tackling an adventure or a free play. I'm not sure which one yet. But first, before we begin, I'd like to thank D&D for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. It is and will always be an honor to be here. And shout out to my moderator, co-producer Sasha, as well as our executive producer Erica, for helping keep the show going. So yeah, do any of you have a suggestion for what I should be trying to do right now? I am up to date on all of my variants, although I'm far from complete on my patrons, because I don't get to play video games as much as I used to, quite frankly. That's just what happens when you have an 8-month-old child at home. So yeah, what should I tackle? Should I just jump into one of the free plays and just put together a formation and see how far I get? Do event runs? Soriel's Resolve, Strahd. Yeah, thanks, Sean, you cheeky bugger. Strahd's Tale of Two Champions. Roll a d20. There actually, you know what? There are no dice in this room. There's a whole bunch of minis and like hand sanitizer and cleaning wipes and boxes of minis and boxes of prizes and other things, but there are no dice. Yeah. Strahd Zapper Overload. Wow, you guys, they're like, we want to watch him fail. Well, let's see. I haven't really, E31 isn't that difficult to reach in these events anymore if you have a lot of geared characters and you use them. So I'm going to use the inverse Descent into Avernus formation for Toragars. And let's see what I can put together. Rather than clicking, I will have these familiars murder things for the first bit here. I'm not going to go forward in levels yet. I'm just going to make a formation. I haven't even saved one for this yet. I can't remember what it was I was even trying to accomplish. But I have been spending a lot of time lately messing with Ashara, given the craziness of this potpourri bond, which is just super good. Which obviously it'll limit me to Aarakocra, Dragonborn, Firbolgs, Lizardfolk, Minotaurs, Tieflings, and Turtles. There's a Turtle. And there's a Lizardfolk. And Tieflings. Now, because I like watching particle effects go off, I can do an Aarakocra Tiefling formation. And just get some interesting stuff in here. Get a moose roll. Really, Gromma could be anywhere at this point. What else do I want to do? I'm just trying to read everybody's chat at the same time, and I'm not doing so great. So I'm going to add Avron, to the formation. I guess this is probably the best spot for him. And if I'm doing a magic damage one, maybe what I want to do, because there's no way we hit my wall over the course of this stream. Zombie Todd, Best Todd. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, Zombie Todd. There we go. I totally forgot that was a thing. Even though Makos would work better with the bond, I think I can get more of a buff out of Ayla or Morgaine. But, I'll do it anyways. Tieflings. And then finally, one more? Who do I want to use for my last slot? Who should I use for my last slot? I'm going to bring these familiars here and have familiars just leveling everybody in the formation. But yeah, who should be in the final position? Mirror focus good, which is weird for me, but I'll do it. Arctic. Now, do I want to? No, I'll just do that. All champions. Bum, 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 bum. Beside. And then short folk. I guess if I want that to work, I should put another short folk in, right? So maybe that's a good reason to switch to Lizaps here. Team player. So that's 2 short folk. I need 1 more short folk in here to make this work. I'll just put Stokey in. I don't, like as much as I like optimal formations, I could have a non-optimal formation and just blow through the first 500-600 areas like it's nothing. So good enough for now. Now that there's a potpourri bond for Ashara, will she eventually be getting a Nag-Champa one as well? That's funny. I thought it was interesting. We talked about adding, making adjustments to Ashara's bond system, about adding characters to it, and changing the bond name to Potpourri was just something that Justin decided to do. So if he's gonna do a Nag Champa one, I guess we'll see. But as far as I know, it's all good. Let's see. Of course, you guys found the hidden code. It was a super easy one today. Hints on that new evil code. Oh, that's a good question. So, fun fact. I know I made a new evil code, but I've actually forgotten what it is. Let me double check. I need to double check that I wrote it down, because I don't think I did. So, yeah. It's I know I made another one because I made it during a stream, and I kind of chuckled to myself as I was making it. But I've actually forgotten what it was. It'll probably come back to me. But yeah, it's there. I can confirm that there is one, as if that helps in any way. Are we going to get another list of hidden codes this year, or are you going to limit it to 1 per year? I'm going to limit it. I caught up, you would say. I did them. I did both the initial list and the follow-up lists in like a half-year span, maybe. So there will be a new hidden combinations list in 2021 that will include what? I don't know. I'll probably change it up this time because I don't want it to be too easy for people to figure everything out. It's maybe I'll make riddles or something. Will there be any special Halloween event or DLC sale? There's the Liar's Night event, which will come in a few weeks. We have 1 or 2 content updates after Highharvestide between the end of Highharvestide 4 and the beginning of Liar's Night. In terms of like a Halloween specific thing, Halloween isn't a holiday in the Forgotten Realms, so we don't have an in-game event planned around it. In terms of sales or potential sales events, anything like that, it's not really something I can actually talk about in advance. It's just we're not allowed to talk about those kinds of things in advance. So the only hint I can really give is if you look at what we did in 2019 and 2018, and to a degree even 2017 and earlier, we have some patterns that we follow. But that's the biggest hint I can really give about that. Zev's Wind just got a shiny common from a wood chest. Are they like a middle thing between common and uncommon items? So gilding one of your equipment cards, which is what people refer to as shinies, is a 1 in 1,000 chance per chest. So it's just, it sometimes happens. And that may seem radically infrequent, and it's certainly very, very rare, and there's no bad luck protection around it. But, players are able to earn and unlock a lot of chests at a time these days. So it's, it'll take you a while, but you will eventually get your core and evergreens all shinied up. So feedback time. How are you feeling about Torogar Steelfist, the big boy who is now in the formation? And I'll just swap him back here. Clunk. How do you feel about Toro? It's weird that he doesn't buff himself. Okay, yeah, that's valid feedback. There's somewhere out there. There's a person who gets a shiny from Delina and they're crying. I mean, we want to talk about Delina's. Look at all these shinies that I eventually got on her. That's how it rolls sometime. But eventually you'll have shinies on all your core and evergreens. So, it's a long-term thing. Toro would be better if he self-buffed like Zorbu, but then again, maybe Zorbu shouldn't self-buff. I think that's valid feedback, Garwar. The main reason that Zorbu is so dominant is because he has an infinite scaling DPS buff. Unlike everything else in the game where we have level soft caps and other things. And it was an experiment. We tried out scaling damage through character usage with Black Viper, and then we made an adjustment to Zorbu, and we've kind of done some things since then that persist through resets with other champions, and we just kind of looking at those different things. So yeah, that's interesting feedback. Toro's making a nice difference in my challenge account, using Archon as a tank with bulk up, and it's a DPS boost. Yeah, okay. Started playing a few days ago. Keep hearing this term evergreens. I assume it's a name for a set of heroes. Help. So Sour Tramp, evergreen champions refers to champions that you unlock through gameplay. They don't come from events. And then core champions are the 12 that you have no matter what as soon as you start playing. Let's see what else. I'd use him if you were using an evil DPS, but you rarely do. Torgar and Archon synergy feels off. Okay. Was expecting him to be bigger. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Minotaurs are absolutely massive, and if you're getting into scale, certainly against a character like Ashara right beside Toro, Aarakocra are not that big, and a Minotaur would be massively larger. We can't really have a Minotaur be actual size ratio compared to everything else because we need the champions to be individually visible in their spots in the formation while also not making it impossible to click on the champions behind them. So if Torgar was actual size Torgar, and I had it swapped like this, you wouldn't be able to click on Ashara. So, we consciously reined in his size a little bit. Just like our kobolds are a little bit bigger than they should be, our halflings are a little bit bigger than they should be, that kind of thing. They're not perfectly ratioed out compared to everything else in the Forgotten Realms. Our size small or our short champions are not, the sub 4 foot in height characters like you would expect in D&D. Let's see. Love the character designs, visuals, animations, and we'll use the Dark Order just because. Oh, cool. Thanks for subbing, Villiser. Let's see. What else we got? The biggest issue I have is that you want to form a Dark Order blob, and tons of the formations don't really allow for that. Now, that's fair. We certainly want... The intent with having different formation shapes is to force people to try and use different things, because it can be pretty easy to retreat to the same general lineup of all of your champions over and over and over again all the time, and so we like to avoid that. Let's see what else. I wish his swords were on fire all the time instead of just when attacking, or at least for the moment before they attack. That's an interesting point. So we were pretty specific about his swords only lighting up when he attacks, because the reason they light on fire is actually not because of the swords, but because of his gauntlets. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to check out the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus TRPG book, but he has these the gauntlets of Flaming Fury, I think they're called, and they turn your weapons into flame tongues, basically. But it's damage on attack. They don't just light on fire. It's like they hit with extra fire. And so we're just trying to be true to that. We worked with Joe on the design of Torgar and implementation of everything. So that's where that comes from. Toro was actually the reason for me to make a first-time mostly, evil formation. And so far I've liked the mechanics because I really like Krull and Archon mechanically and as an idea. Although I'm a little put off by the whole only evil stuff. Okay, that's interesting feedback. Fair enough. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. It would be good if maybe the Dark Order got one other person with some unique ability better suited to Avernus. I did my absolute best for Archon DPS in Avernus, but I just couldn't reach my best formations wall. That's fair. Yeah. Archon, with his usurp power ability, was certainly the de facto top tier DPS for a long time. But things have opened up quite a bit since then. Both between the Zorbu update and other champions have just kind of made it more possible for it's hard to compete with the Zorbu formation. If you have the equipment and the champions, then Artemis formation is pretty phenomenal. And usurp power scales very, very well. But it scales based on item levels. It doesn't just scale from using it all the time. So it's interesting point. Brave Sword is so big it actually blocks you from clicking the bench 2 champion if you're on his character page. What else we got? I know Joe had some other champions in the game. Which ones? The Dark Order ones? So Joe's champions are Archon the Cruel, the slot 12 core champion. Krull, who is, this slot 6 beast. I want to say he's from our Cymril event, I think. That sounds right, Cymril. And then Torrigar Steelfist, who came as part of Highharvestide. So those are 3 characters created by Joe Manganiello for D&D. Archon the Cruel, you may have seen if you watch D&D live play shows. He had at least 1 or 2 guest appearances on the first campaign of Critical Role, but he was more prominently featured he was one of the characters in the Force Grey Lost City of Omu series, along with Deb Ranwall and Dylan Sprouse and Brian Posehn, and was there another one? It was DM'd by Matt Mercer. Anyways, I'm probably forgetting somebody. So Archon the Cruel was one of the members of that group, through that completion. And then Hitch, Utkar Shambadar was the last one. And thanks to the reminder, OG17 and CD88. And then Joe worked with Chris Perkins and the folks at D&D to bring Archon the Cruel to the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus book, acknowledging the events in Exandria, as the book says. And Torrigar Steelfist was always envisioned for it. At least that's what Joe said on stream last week. And Krull was part of Archon's plan to steal the Hand of Ekna. So those were the sort of 3 characters he's created for the Dark Order so far. He's talked about creating others, but yeah, those are the ones that Joe created that are in the game. Marok the God, is the Nayeli skin still available from the WizKids booster packs? Yes and no. So I don't know exactly. It sounds like they've done a reprint run of the series that originally had codes for the Champion Nayeli skin. In which case, anything from that printing run wouldn't include those codes because it was only part of the first run. So, yeah, that's kind of what happened with that, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. In the future, will there be more of an emphasis on champions who buff versus champions who debuff? That's a good question. We kind of take it a champion at a time. Like, we don't have a... Excuse me, I need some water. Ugh, smoke air. We kind of take a... we don't take an overarching, like, this year no buffer champions or no debuffer champions approach to things. We very much do it one at a time. There are certainly a number of debuffing champions, and they've proven to be exceptionally powerful because of the way that debuffs work in our system. So does that mean that we're going to go away from it? No. We take it a champion at a time. And part of it, because so many of the characters we create are being adapted from specific lore-based characters in books or what have you, or from partners that we work with. And because of that, we kind of first consider what makes sense for those characters before we go into buffing and debuffing and things like that. Oh, yeah, air. What about a bigger character like an ogre that takes up 2 slots and is balanced around that? We've had that feedback quite a few times. We don't currently have plans to do that because we don't have a system built into the game for the formations that would allow for that. And I don't know if that's one we're going to put in or if it's something that we're planning to do. But certainly we've made note that it has been suggested quite a few times. Any chance you could put a note to make slots that are taken up where you cannot place a champion still count as a slot with a champion? Annoying when trying to get achievements while progressing when they don't count. Your opponent... I am going to make a note here. I'm trying to think of who I need to direct that towards. Probably that person. So what you're talking about is how during the course of some adventures, when there's a gap in the formation, like in the formation that you see on screen right now, sometimes it doesn't consistently affect adjacencies and other things for champions. But there's also champion abilities where it could be different, where like, for example, Dadius's aura goes through blank slots, but some of the other support buffs don't. So I'll just make a note for that. Let's see, I already talked about those ones. Are there plans to show HP or mana and effects next to character portraits for more visibility? I don't know that I can definitively say that we have a specific plan related to it. We've heard that feedback, and it's something that we're thinking about. But I don't have an update on whether or not anything related to that will change. The UI, the overlays, the little formation circles underneath characters that have their health and stuff, and the visibility under different circumstances is it's a greater conversation around the display of those design elements. And I don't have anything to report on it right now. You mentioned formations. Do you ever foresee having multiple formation options for more advanced quest lines? Not the first couple, as that could be daunting to new players, but for later ones to encourage experimentation. We don't. I don't think we have tech to change formations in an adventure, so that's something that we would have to create. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was reading something else in chat. Anyways, yeah, we don't have plans to do anything like that. I don't know that it's something that we can do with the way the game is currently built, but certainly I can pass that suggestion along. It would be interesting if the further along you got, you either lost slots or gained slots or whatever. Right now what we do is we tend to just take slots away from you, filling them up with carts or chickens or little devils or what have you, depending on the adventure. And a lot of people are asking me about updates for specific things. I mean, generally, a lot of those updates, if we have an update on a specific thing, it would have come in a dev blog or would have come as part of one of the community Q&As. Like, I don't have an update for you on potential tutorial changes or anything like that. One thing that we've been doing is we've been working with Garwar on the Garwar's Guide show to, have a video reference for somebody who wants to learn more about specific features in the game. But like when you say something like, hey, like any update on when you're going to put in a tutorial system for something, like those are massive, massive in-game things to put in. Like, it's a significant effort to do something like that. So, if the thought process around our in-game tutorials and what information is available in-game changes, and we decide that we're gonna put in new tutorial systems and stuff like that, like we'll certainly let everybody know. But it's not something I'm could really even try to talk about right now. Can you give details on how the wild offer system has changed as mentioned in the changelog? I can't. I'm actually, I mean, I'll defer to the experts on that, but like as I understand it, the way the wild offer system is there are, it's got its own internal system for determining and creating the deals, and like it's kind of always being gradually iterated on, and I don't have anything that I can give you on how it works. I'm gonna make a note about that though, because if we're gonna make a point of mentioning it in the changelog, maybe certainly players, I know you want more context for what the change means, so I'll just pass the feedback along. Dritz now has a 120% self-damage feat for 50,000 gems. Was that a giveaway promotion somewhere? They tend to be. We make feats available for gems when they get created elsewhere. So, yeah. Oh no, Garwar. Margaret and Satine talked about Halloween costumes for their show the week of Halloween, as did Mars, and I have my costume already. Have you figured out yours? No, I haven't. I have no plans to do a Halloween costume that week. I did the Murray the Flame Skull last year, and it was so awkward to try and talk to Aaron Evans while I was wearing a Flame Skull mask and a green screen cloak to make everything but my head disappear. I don't know. I mean, it's a time permitting thing. I just don't like. I'm not even getting to play my games anymore because I have a small child to raise, which is an amazing, joyful experience, and I'm loving every second of it. However, what I don't have is time to finish games. In addition to being obviously excited for the early access launch of Baldur's Gate 3 next week, which I'm looking forward to at least trying. We'll see how far I get to dive into it. And playing this, and I haven't finished any of the games I've picked up this year. I'm maybe halfway through Ghost of Tsushima. I have managed to stay on top of all the adventures and variants coming out in Idle Champions, but I'm not catching up on my Patreon completions. And I also picked up Hades. It's from an indie studio called Supergiant that is a phenomenal game. If you like, third person, three-quarter perspective action RPGs that are also roguelites based on Greek mythology. Hades is a phenomenal, phenomenal game, and I am so jealous of their soundtrack and voiceover. It's absolutely wonderful. I would go so far as to say that it's the front runner for Game of the Year right now, at least until Cyberpunk 2077 comes out. Anyways, do I have a costume? I don't. Maybe I'll have one. Yeah. Even if you don't love the genre, the production is. Yeah, Hades. The art direction on it is incredible. Yeah, they just did an amazing, amazing job. But I've kind of I didn't connect. Like I've played a few of Supergiant's games. I really, really like Bastion. I just didn't connect with Transistor. I couldn't get into it. And then. But Hades, I'm loving it, absolutely loving it. I've had like half an hour to play it since it came out, maybe. So, Yeah. Um, Twitch plays Idle Champions. Joshua, join the CNE stream with a Twitch chat bot where viewers can vote on variants, change formation, and maybe win chests. Could be a fun project. You know, Joshua, we actually did that. There was a Twitch plays Idle Champions that ran for quite a long time. And, we did it when we were a lot earlier into the game. Into the Life of Idle Champions. I want to say it came out either end of 2017 or sometime early May, maybe first quarter 2018 it came out. There was a Twitch Plays Idle Champions Twitch channel with this going. And, there weren't enough people playing it. So we eventually shut down that project, especially since, in addition to coming out on a number of other platforms, maintaining the Twitch Plays Idle Champions platform, keeping that up to date was like a major challenge. I'm happy somebody suggested it, brought it up, but it's not something that we're likely to do again. Let's see what else we got. Alrighty, question about event chests. I have Toragar fully geared with the exception of his common scimitars. I have opened 5 silver Toragar chests since then and cannot seem to get to that item. Is this working as intended? It is, which is to say that it's RNG at this point when you open your silver Toragar chests, whether or not you're going to get that specific item. The only thing that a chest promises is a potential upgrade if one is available. But you're not talking about an upgrade. So really, you're each time you open one of those silver chests, you're rolling the dice to see if your equipment card in it is a common rarity and of that slot. So it is working as intended. The system only promises to give you upgrades when they're available. And this is not like this is something that has kind of come up from time to time over the lifetime of Idle Champions. It's something that's been brought up before, but right now it's working as intended. I really like the gem items tab in the store, but are there any plans to add the gem purchasable feats to that tab? I'd love the feats to all be in one place so I can study them and decide which I want to buy without having to look at every character individually. So we did talk about the idea of putting the feats into the gem store, and the problem is that it would absolutely drown the gem store in feats. There are a lot of them. There are hundreds and hundreds of feats, and so we've heard that feedback. We have some potential ideas on how we could address that aspect of the game, making feats easier to track and more visible. But we don't have anything official to share on the subject, so that's kind of just where it stops now. But it is something that is on our minds. Will there be more exclusive skins given out, or will future skins all be put in the gem shop instead? So it's not an either-or thing. Skin exclusivity, any kind of Idle Champions exclusivity. The current plan is that there will be exclusivity windows. So the Gromma skin that you can see, the Druid Warrior Gromma, which was available as part of exclusively on Xbox for Xbox players for a time, and I believe it's now available in the gem shop. Or it's going to be available in the gem shop if it isn't already. But the intent is that, depending on what we do with our partners and other people we work with and other things, other platforms, something can be exclusive for a window of time, but it will eventually make its way into Idle Champions, either into the gem shop or the wild offer system, depending on how it was available elsewhere. Can we get the journal to also track chest drops from event free plays? Oh, yeah, that's an interesting bit of feedback, Mage Pie. I'll pass that along. I don't know if that's something that we'll consider, but make a note. Is there a chance that Shandy could get a feat that increases her speed ability, that increases dash? Um, I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think we would. Shandy's dash is like super, super good. It's, it counts for your overall speed. It is a profoundly powerful ability, and so I get people be like, "I'd like to double it with a feat," and like, of course you would, but I don't know that that's something that we're gonna do. How about a speed node on a new Modron core? Unlikely. I mean, it never hurts to ask, but it's not something that we're looking at or considering. Why doesn't the gem icon on the toolbar open the gem shop? It opens collections. Because that's the icon that we created for that. A long, long time ago. Yeah. That's what it does. That's what this button does. This button has existed since before the gem shop. But that is an interesting bit of feedback, and I'm actually going to make a note about that for our art director. And our UI folks, because I think that now that the gem store exists, that is kind of strange, isn't it? My gem farm keeps closing. Is there a way I can get the RAM tax down so it doesn't crash? I mean, at least one half. If you're seeing a crash on a regular basis, what you should do is put in a ticket. We're always working on memory-related issues and other optimizations for the game. And I know there are things in progress right now that are extremely promising. I don't have ETAs. I can't tell you when things are going to come to very specific platforms because until it's confirmed and locked in, that's when something is final. But yeah, if you're seeing that kind of crash, please submit a ticket. Especially if you can give us more context to it and you can help us better isolate issues and figure out why something happens. All right. Do we have a way to get some sort of report wherein I can see the average gold and gem drops for our runs? We don't. I can pass along that that's some information that players would be interested in. I don't know if that's something that we're going to implement in any way. I mean, aside from going back into your God, what's it called? I'm having a brain fart. Aside from going into your journal and looking at the loot, it doesn't tell you your averages. It just kind of tells you what you're getting at any given time. So, yeah, I will. I'll pass the feedback along and see. Maybe that's something that could be integrated into a future system or something. I'm not sure. What are stats for? I can't seem to find an explanation in game, and why would I have a +1 then for objectives only? So. The different ability score stats for the different champions is it's because this is based on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So champions have ability scores that are roughly, not always exactly, but roughly correspond to the ability scores of those characters in TRPG books or interpreted based on their lore or appearances in other games, that kind of stuff. The only thing it really affects are the use of different formation abilities and their candidacy for different adventures and variants. That's the use of ability scores. So, there are circumstances where it might be more helpful to have higher or lower, charisma or intelligence or dexterity or whatever. That's where it's one of the things that affects modifiers in the game. Yeah, but increasing an ability score, does it make a specific champion more powerful? Not directly, but it might make them eligible for a buff they weren't already eligible for, or eligible for an adventure that you couldn't use them in before, that kind of thing. So they have power, but they're not inherently powerful. Alrighty. Have you done or would you do a walkies weekend? For some of the champions with pets or wild shapes that are cute. That's an interesting idea, Cranky Nerd Girl. I will pass that along to the people who make promos. Maybe they'll figure something out. Cute weekend, yay! All right. If we buy Modron Core 2 now and its price gets reduced before official release, will we receive a partial refund to meet the new cost? I mean, we don't have any intentions to lower the cost of Modron Core, the second Modron Core. Like, just straight up, we don't have any plans to change that. If for some reason in the future we're like, you know what, this should be 100,000 gems instead of whatever, like if we change the price, then yeah, we would look at refunding people who had already made the purchase. But yeah, we do not have plans to do that because unlocking a second core allows you to do a lot of stuff. You can automate twice as much stuff in the game as you could before that. It's a big deal. So yeah, we don't have plans to release to lower the cost on it right now. Could we get a regular Reddit post where you could tell us feedback from all of the stuff you write down every week, and same with the questions that are answered? No, we're not going to do that. Nobody has time to put that together. I on average go through 100 questions per Q&A on a stream, and we're not gonna. Nobody has time to write all that down. Like, I get why it would be helpful, and I know that players would love to be able to reference it and use it as a resource. But it's not tenable. Like, I don't know how many of you have done transcribing before, like worked in a role where you had to do transcribing, worked as a journalist, that kind of thing. It's very time consuming. So now the trade-off to that is that we don't mind re-answering questions. Somebody shows up inevitably every week. Somebody will ask us whether or not characters from Vox Machina or the Mighty Nine are coming to the game. We'd love to. We have no plans to do that. That kind of thing. But making summaries of Q&As and stuff is it's not likely to happen. Yeah. Sorry. Minor quality of life suggestion for people that do not know from playing D&D that Drow and Eladrin are considered part of the Elven races. Yeah, now I thought that our plan... So when we made updates to the bonds... Let me just... Ashara forms a bond of friendship with the dwarf and elf champions, including Drow, in your party. And so we've started trying to address that, but I just realized that doesn't also say... including Drow and Eladrin. If we want to get specific, it's like including Drow, Eladrin, Shadar-kai, etc. All the elves that don't have the word elf in their name somewhere. But yeah, our plan has been to start working on that. Any idea on if or when Steam achievements will stop being added to the game? We don't have plans to stop. Yeah, I know that there are folks who like having games be 100%ed. I am one of them. Or at least I used to be before I had a baby. When it comes to Steam, we're not planning on stopping putting in achievements. Yeah. When will we get the last Erebus hero? Cymril. Any chance to get a tool that shows which patron variant you have left to do instead of searching all over the map for a tick mark? That's an interesting point, Carinus. Yeah, I'll pass something along. I don't like. So we have two things. If you're not on the correct world map for a variant that you're looking for, the one in the corner will have a little green tab saying whether or not there are available adventures or variants there. But we don't have anything that directs you to one if you are on the correct map screen and you can't seem to find it. So I don't know if there's something that we can do about that with the way everything is set up right now, but I'll pass that feedback along. Let's see. I can just call Dritz a dark elf. Well, but Drow is like they're Drow. Yeah. Even though they were at one time, like, even though all elves are born of Corellin and began their existence in the Feywild, they have become, basically, they've become genetically distinct from one another despite still being elves, depending on where they ended up. And so, you know, we don't refer to characters as dark elves in the game. We drow are drow. Would you consider making more or all of a champion's golden epics available in chest packs when you time gate a champion? Would increase time gate utility and player agency? No, we're not going to do that. Yeah, putting golden epics available in random chests and time gates is not something that's ever likely to happen. Yeah. Now, I know that that's not an answer that people necessarily want to hear, but you know, this is a game that costs money to make, and it's free to play, and we're comfortable with, everything being completable through players who want to play for free, and they want to be a part of the community and all that stuff, and that's great. But we do need to keep these lights on, and golden epics are a part of that. So. Yeah, they're not likely to ever show up in a time gate chest or anything like that. Yeah. Oh, letting paired players buy past golden epics during time gates. Oh, I thought we did that. Bundled with the chest packs. I see. Eno Death. Okay, or Eno Ditta. I will pass that along. I thought we did something like that. But yeah, I'll pass that. Because it might be something that we're planning to do down the line or what have you. Yeah. Galatiki, a new player question. What champions can we lock through campaigns, and is there any guide where to find them all? There are a few champions you can unlock through campaigns. I don't know if there's like one guide to where you get them all, but I will. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would recommend first is, because each one of them have had individual guides. Because at different times in the game's life, they have been more or less difficult to accomplish. Like, when Asaka's procession first came out in the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, it was a very, very difficult variant and the most difficult thing in the game. And now it's not really, because there have been soft cap increases and and stuff since then. I would definitely recommend joining the official Discord, discord.gg/idlechampions, because there are player resources in there and there are new player resources, and there are players who have put in the effort to provide those things. And I see that Garwar has also mentioned Garwar's guides. There's a Reddit resource for that kind of thing that's got guides to different events and features in the game and other stuff. Yeah, but I don't know if there's one post that's like, this champion is here, you have to do this kind of thing. But yeah, Dritz is in the Grand Tour of the Sword Coast campaign. Azaka Stormfang and Dragon Bait are in the Tomb of Annihilation campaign. Okoria Stone Marrow is in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. There will be one in the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus campaign. And yeah, Hitch is unlocked through the newsletter. Where do the characters that are half race fall for Ashara's Bond ability? There's a Bond half races. For half elves and half orcs. It's the second tier of specializations for Ashara. That's where that shows up. Yeah. Alrighty. Where are we at? What time is it? 1:49. Okay. So Dr. B won't be here yet. I have to remember to let him in to the call. Because you can't just auto join a Zoom thing anymore. So I'm going to keep checking back for when he's ready. Have you considered utilizing the Twitch drop system instead of the raffle system? More players would benefit from this change, and the chat would not be spammed. We have. The only thing I could say, Saracen HC, is that the Twitch drop system is not as friendly as we would prefer, and our chat really didn't like it. Yeah, we did it for a few things, and the feedback was heard loud and clear, and we have not decided to again do Twitch drops. Yeah. Yeah, Twitch drops. Oh man. I'm going to tell our marketing director that you asked that question, though. That'll make him happy. He loved the Twitch drops. Would be nice to have a champion in the game who, oh god darn it, who does different buffs and debuffs based on the column they're placed in. Like in the front, they're a tank. One from the front, they're a healer. Back one more, they're speed, etc. That's an interesting idea. It sounds like a very overpowered character in that if they're so versatile that they can be of a profound use in any formation. I don't know. Like we kind of, like, yes, sometimes we've made characters that are definitively powerful. Looking at you, Krull. But we want people to have to make choices about how they use characters, and when characters get too versatile, it's not a choice. So, yeah. I think that the biggest problem was dropping unique items as Twitch drops. 7 chests would be fine as long as they aren't a one-time unique item. And so the other part of that, Trontonian, because I know, just to get into it, is running and managing Twitch drops is not an easy thing to just do. It is the easiest thing for us to do is to have a raffle that everybody signs up for, find a winner, and then we go into your account and award stuff. That is much, much easier and requires fewer steps than using Twitch drops to give stuff away. Yeah. Coruscant Howled. Any chance we could get a spoiler on which deity's favor we will receive from the Icewind Dale campaign? I can't remember if we said that already. Did we not say that already? I think we might have said that already. But in case we didn't, I'm not going to say. I don't want to get in trouble. Because, yeah, since I don't really get to sleep very well anymore, my memory is just falling apart. It's unraveling. So I'm going to err on the side of I'm not going to say. I think you did because you have to change the favor of one of the events. Oh, okay. Right, yeah. So which is to say, one of our events, it's a favor you've already seen before, and one of our events is going to have their favor changed. Da-da-da. Yeah. So it's not really a spoiler, but it's a hint. But yeah, there will be a new one. Oh, excuse me. You know that feeling when you have you can feel like a burp or something slowly coming, and you keep expecting it to happen, and so you keep trying to be polite about it, and but it's just not. Ugh, one of those days. All right. Let me double check again to see if Dr. B. No, okay. Cool. Let's see. We know the one that will change, but not the new one that will replace it. Oh, I have no idea what the new one that will replace it is. I haven't been briefed on that. Being a semi-remote company has been really, really interesting for us in that, obviously the pandemic hits, businesses go full remote if it's possible for them to do so, or they shutter or whatever. And it's been the year has been filled with transition. So one of the things that's been kind of strange is that what used to happen is that we'd have our morning, we do a morning meeting every meeting where everybody in the company gets, sees everybody else. It used to be we'd stand in a great big circle. We probably don't have enough room in our office to even do that now, even if we could have everybody in. And so it tends to be a whole bunch of Zoom window or a whole bunch of Google Meet windows of just people. And then some of them have groups of people in them and they're all standing apart and stuff. But, just we're like one more degree separated because some of us are remote and some of us aren't. And so like Chris Dupuis, who's our live services manager, isn't in the office. Most of our devs, I believe, are in the office, but nobody from marketing is in the office. It's just kind of like everything is just kind of like we're, the company is split. Most of the artists aren't in the office, but the art director is, and one of the artists is, but the other ones are all remote, and so on and so forth. And so everything's just kind of like spread out. And because of that, it is harder to make sure that you're in the loop on everything all the time until you get briefed on something, because you don't overhear the person next to you talking about something anymore. Or the meeting across the room or whatever. And that used to be one of the chief ways that you found out about what was going on. And so it's not even whether or not you do or don't get a memo. It's that we're as a person who works in marketing, we are actually busier now than we were before the pandemic hit, except we're remote, and so we're just swamped all the time. And so unless somebody pulls us into a meeting to brief us on something that's coming, like what happens when we do the summer spectacular or the spring extravaganza, that kind of stuff, is we have a call specifically about upcoming events in the game, upcoming information, that kind of stuff. So that's when we get looped in. I haven't been looped in yet about which deity is swapping with which to accommodate the Rime of the Frost Maiden taking over Oral's favor, but we'll figure it out. Will it mess with existing blessings? I don't believe so, Cassius 335. As I understand it, it should be a simple cosmetic change. Like we changed the graphic for the icon for the favor, and we renamed the deity. So it should be easy. Colin Boy 6879. Is there a difference between playing the game on Steam versus playing it on the web? Yes, but the differences are all under the hood. The Steam version of the game gets updated the most frequently, by far, because it is the easiest platform by far to update. We can just we can create a build and push the button at any time that we want with Steam. We develop on Steam first, and so if you're on another platform, and you don't get you'll either get the updates at the same time or a bit later. Varied. I know that Switch, I think, still doesn't have mode run automation and multi-party mode, but I'm not quite clear exactly on ETAs related to that or anything like that. So your experience will vary a bit. The nice thing about Steam is that you can log in on Steam on different computers and then pull up your game. Although WebGL, you can do that as well. So I don't know. I mean, between Steam and web, pick your poison. If I had to choose one for somebody, I'm like, hey, you should join on this platform, I would choose C&E Games. Why C&E Games? Because it's ours. It's on our website. Yeah. Anyways. Any word on more one-time / one-off adventures, like an adventure that splits your party and requires completion on each side? No word on it. I mean, when we get suggestions like this, they get passed along to the design team, but it doesn't turn into a something that we're gonna bring updates back on a regular basis. Like, oh yeah, we like that idea, we're gonna do this, and it'll show up at some point or it won't. Is kind of how it goes. Anyways, I know that ideally it would be a little bit more transparent than that, but it's not something that we have the capacity to do to keep people in that kind of loop. The next big DLC sale, perhaps Black Friday. I can't comment on potential upcoming sale information. It's just there are. Put simply, there are platform-related NDAs about advanced information on these various subjects. So not only can I not say anything about it, I will probably never, ever be able to say anything about it, which is why I usually tell players to just kind of like look back at when we've done things similar in the past, and like you can use it as a very rough kind of idea, but we can't talk about those kinds of things in advance. Would founders of the champions, in quotes, work as a group name or affiliation for the original four champions, Bruner, Celeste, Naily, and Jarlaxle? Um, I I don't know. I mean, in what context? Like, are you wanting them to have an affiliation? Because like, well, they are our first four champions. They're not affiliated. Like, I know that Jarlaxle has kind of pivoted from being like more or less evil and antagonistic to, an anti-hero and like everywhere in between because he's a dynamic personality. Celeste and Naeli are kind of categorically just good, and so is Bruner. But Bruner is in the Companions of the Hall, so that's his affiliation. Naeli is on the cover of the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. That's where Naeli popped up first, and has since showed up not just in our game, but in the Warriors of Waterdeep mobile game. And Celeste is from the Neverwinter game, actually. Yeah, but they're also. So I guess what I'm saying is that they're even if we were considering affiliations for them, they're too separate to be in the same one. They are merely the thing that they have is that they are the first four champions in our game. All right. Checking for Dr. B. Dr. B is not here. Now that Archon has two affiliations, hovering over on the top of the page will only list the Dark Order and not Force Grey. Interesting. Okay. I mean, that sounds like a boog. Anyways, I'm going to hit this button here. And hopefully it will do what it's supposed to do. And, hello?
Hello there.
Hi. Hi, Dr. B.
Hello.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. How's everybody doing?
I'm mostly well. Yeah. Underslept as you would expect a father of an 8-month-old child. So, other than that, things are great. Yeah. How about yourself? How are you?
I'm doing great. Always happy to be here. I've been losing a lot of time to this game recently.
Oh, well good.
As soon as I logged on, I was like, "Oh wait, if there's a new code for a gold chest."
Good. No, I'm glad to hear it. It always brings me joy when people are like, "I enjoy playing this." I'm like, "Yes," because like the whole point of a game is that people play it and enjoy playing it, and it's nice to hear. So thank you.
Well, like I said, happy to be here. Love what y'all do. Love the support for Take This. Love your community. It's a good combo.
Likewise, we love Take This, and the work that you do is important. So we're happy to be able to work together and participate and do cool stuff. Yeah. Actually, how has the PAX Online been for you?
Oh, that was unexpectedly fun. Like I knew it was gonna be fun, but I because no one has ever really done at least as far as I know, such a massive online convention like that. I didn't entirely know what to expect, but kind of like a regular PAX, once I figured out a few rules and of like where to hang out, where do I want to hang out in the Discord, and just kind of stuck around there. It was super fun. A little overwhelming before that, but super fun after.
Cool. Yeah, it's admittedly, I remember when Eve had first emailed like, "This is what we're planning for PAX Online." Where I'm like, I'm not sure I understand how that's going to work, because like I think about how much I enjoy AFK rooms at PAX, because like PAX is a pretty overwhelming experience. A lot of people, a lot of noise and stimulation and just stuff, and like finding a place that's like silent and like it's just like just immediately you feel better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had a hard time wrapping my head around how that transitions. Like, how do you transition from the live version to the online version?
Yeah, in fairness, so did we. We had a hard time picturing that too, but I got to give credit where it's due. ReedPop reached out to us. Penny Arcade and ReedPop both reached out and like, hey, we want to simulate the in-person community feel of PAX as much as possible, and as such, we want you to bring the AFK room. And so we spent about a month of really intense work to reformat the entirety of it, and we ended up having to reach out to a bunch of international mental health orgs, and they partnered with us, and we had over 100 volunteers over 54 shifts in the AFK online over the 9 days of PAX Online. And what was just super cool about that is that people could go into it, know it was relaxing online space, and chat with people who were also experiencing PAX at the same time. So it ended up being unexpectedly helpful.
Cool. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, and I'm also glad to. That's a lot of volunteers, because I remember when they first announced how long PAX-O was. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, and we had never. People had asked us in the past to run 24-hour a day AFK rooms at some of the shows, some of the festivals that were 24 hours, a day. But the truth is that in order for us to open an AFK room, we have to have at least one licensed clinician there at all times. And you may have better luck than I do trying to get a clinician to volunteer their time at 3 a.m. in the morning. This being an international show and pulling in international volunteers really helped that a lot. I mean, the Australian contingency were absolutely fantastic.
Cool. I'm glad to hear it.
So were some of our folks in Europe. I mean, it's just all the volunteers were amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's cool to hear that it's such a global effort to make it happen.
Yeah, it really was. My goodness, I have a lot of gratitude for both our community manager, Dr. Kelly Dunlap, and our AFK program manager, Elizabeth Flanagan. This was really their success.
Cool. And I since we last spoke, I noticed your setup. I don't see a coat rack with a bunch of different hats on it or anything. You have a different streaming setup now.
Well, I've moved, and I've moved. I do have hats around me. They're just set up a little bit differently. I've got a couple of flat caps I need to pick up off of a few boxes I have down here, but I've got 3 brimmed hats over on stands on my desk.
Cool.
So yeah, no, I still have hats. In fact, I've got an entire wall of them outside of my office.
A hat wall. Okay, that's cool.
I need to put up about 10 more pegs for about 10 or 11 more hats.
But it's, surely the pandemic has slowed down your acquisition of said hats.
You'd think that. You would think that, but no. The company I buy pretty much all my hats from has shifted to this online thing, and also they sent me one. They sent me one yesterday. They just straight up just like, here, we made one of a kind for you. Here, have it.
Oh, cool. Does it have the take this knight on it with the shield?
Doesn't have our Psychomancer on it, but it does. It is. I'm very happy. I can show you if you want. I
want to see it. I'm excited for this.
It's modeled after one of my absolute favorites that they produce, and it is made directly for me, and largely because it was made sight unseen. I think I'm leaning towards calling it Roll the Dice.
That's a good name for it. Plus, it's one of a kind. So,
it's immediately become one of my absolute favorites. I love it so much. Gurin Brothers are amazing.
Nice. That's very, very cool. I guess just kind of like rolling things back a bit, because last time we chatted would have probably been this time last year.
Yeah.
Like following PAX West kind of thing. Mm-hmm. How has your work changed in 2020?
Oh boy. Well, there have been a few major events that have happened in 2020 that you may have heard about, and people's mental health needs have, all joking aside, all sarcasm aside, people's mental health needs have really shifted. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at a mobilized effort on a global level that we really haven't seen since World War II. And we now have a new normal that we're coping with. Most of us have spent decades learning sort of rules on how to exist and navigate through the world. And now a lot of those rules have gone sideways, and we are adjusting to a new normal. And subsequently, Take This As Work has largely become, since March, one more of trainings. We were already doing trainings behind the scenes for companies, for game studios.
Yeah.
But we've been doing a lot more. Especially around teaching people the skills to work from home, teaching people the skills to find, I don't like the term work-life balance, because work is a part of life. I mean, it's me being pedantic, but work-home separation, which is a tricky thing, especially since many of us, a lot of us are working from home now. So actually finding that mental separation between work and your home life is really tricky. And so we've been doing a lot of that stuff, a lot more consultation with game studios and conventions. And we're just really shifting towards offering more online content. Thanks to a very generous gift from Rainbow Six, we're going to be putting out some videos on mental health resources for streamers and content creators. So,
oh, cool.
We've just pivoted hard.
Yeah. Like, what is the... So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I just have this sort of like fantastical idea. I'm like, is this what this is like? You know, I imagine you've transitioned from a lot of in-person work to a lot of not in-person, like maybe still face-to-face, but either calls or virtually through like cameras. Is that the case?
In terms of
just, I guess, not just interacting with people on the day-to-day, because if we're working remotely, I guess we kind of are, but like also, I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around like what is it like for a client without getting into details, but like, well, if they were used to coming into a clinic and having a visit in person with a doctor to talk.
Well, from what I hear, it's very different, but I don't see clients anymore. I haven't for over a year. All of my work is educational and policy now, and advocacy work.
Cool.
But from all of my friends who are clinicians, it's an interesting transition, because a lot of mental health professionals I know are not exactly hip to technology. And so this is forcing a lot of treatment providers that I know to suddenly get a little bit more up to date on things like video conferencing technology, learning about the internet, learning about some of webcam capabilities and microphone capabilities. It's really interesting to see people catching up, and I'm really glad to see it, because it's really, in my mind, it's the next frontier. The accessibility of having a therapist or psychologist, psychiatrist, whomever on your computer is an amazing, amazing thing that's going to provide a lot of access to people who didn't previously have access.
Cool. Yeah. You said you spend a lot of time with education, doing education and policy related stuff now. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, that's the work that we do with Take This. That we do, like I said, a lot of behind the scenes consultation work with game companies, game studios. There's a game that we consulted on being released in the near future called Destiny's Sword. I believe it's in alpha right now, that incorporates mental health elements directly into MMO gameplay, where your interpersonal interactions with your squadron or your platoon of soldiers directly affects their in-game performance. And so you have to, as a commanding officer, attend to their emotional needs in a way that's really unique and interesting. So that's a game we've consulted on that we're really excited to see, come out. But also working with different companies on maximizing their internal wellness around their work policies, crunch, around things like burnout. Burnout's a very big one right now, as you might imagine.
Yep. Yeah. No, I don't doubt it. I dedicated a half decade to just starting a nonprofit and running stuff, and we were both fortunate and unfortunate to not lose any volunteers. But after 5 years, the volunteers were very tired. They still believed in it with their whole heart, but they were just, and then also people started having kids, and they're like, I don't have capacity for this anymore, and and just thinking about burnout, like, My daughter was born at the end of January, and so I took February off, came back to work for 10 days maybe before it was like, you're going back home. I'm like, okay. We came into work one day, and there was a one of our co-founders had ordered a box of webcams, like just before they started putting limits on buying webcams on like Amazon and stuff. He'd already bought like 20. Mm-hmm. He's like 20 of these Logitechs and like headsets and all this stuff. And he's like, everybody needs to take what they need when they go today, because this is all going to change. And everything about your mental approach to the day to day has completely shifted. And it's, you're working from home. It's at least for me, I can only really speak to my experience. It's like hoping if I'm working from home, hoping that I'm not so busy with work that I have time to like go for a walk. Like I spend all my breaks cuddling a baby, which is really helpful. Because if I was at the office, I would be thinking about that. And so it's nice that it's just right there. But it's all so different. It's very surreal at times.
It is. It's a new normal, and one of the things we talk about with companies with some frequency is the idea that working from home is a different skill set. It's not good or bad. It's just a very different skill set that most of us haven't been developing. And so one of the you think about the idea of going into an office, and you've got all of these subtle visual or interpersonal cues that it's time to work. You also have this transition ritual of the commute to work to kind of get your mind and your body ready to do the work. And you've got people reminding you when it's time to take breaks. There's a lot of externally generated structure that now most of us now have to generate for ourselves. And that is a very different skill set. So one of the things that we often tell people, there's different techniques that we've heard about that even some of us have used that people have found helpful. Me personally, I actually go sit in my car for like 15 minutes sometimes at the end of the workday and listen to the radio. I just go sit in the driver's seat in the garage, not moving, and listen to the radio because that's my commute time. And that's a transition to get back into the headspace of I'm at home. My girlfriend takes the dog, walks around the block. That's her commute home.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that because before I worked at Codename, I did remote contract work and I worked from home for years and years and years. But one of the things that I like, you put in you develop a skill set working from home where because you're, if you're working remotely and all of your stuff is through virtual calls, you make sure that you have social aspects of your life outside of your work, which is a little challenging right now.
It's different. It's very different right now. Socialization can occur. It's just very different than what most of us are used to.
Yeah. And it's just, I think I thought about how challenging it was for myself, despite having years of experience working remotely. And I'm like, okay, lots of people have none. It would be a lot more difficult. And it's a challenge. It's the only thing I can say. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the other things we talk about with companies a lot is the idea that we need to throw out the concept of we are simply working from home. I mean, yes, we're technically working from home, but what we're really trying to do is we're trying to be productive while adjusting to an incredible flipping of our entire infrastructure amid a global pandemic. We are trying to be normal in an abnormal time, and it's just about impossible.
Yeah. And, and who knows what the new normal will be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 10 months from now. So,
yeah, it's, I wish I had a crystal ball on this one to tell people. All I can tell people is, follow CDC guidelines and wear a mask when you go out. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal talking to the CDC, and the CDC estimated that if everybody were to start wearing a mask right this moment, and everybody did it, we would have this the whole thing under control in 6 to 8 weeks. We could have this under control by Christmas. And so, I mean, just basically follow health guidelines, gang.
Yeah, it's we're it's I was talking to actually it comes up with because we work with a lot of people who live in the U.S. and
Hmm.
it's hard not to talk about the greater situation every time we have a conference call with somebody
Hmm.
or what have you, and um, you know, like there's this perception that things are amazing and perfect in Canada. I'm like, no, our cases are going up too. We just, in seem to have a much higher instance of people paying attention to health guidelines. But it's also part of it's luck. Like we're in BC, numbers have been going up steadily, but not explosively, thankfully, but like steadily for the last month and a half. But on Vancouver Island, not so much because we're on an island. It's just kind of like we're kind of lucky. Just in this circumstance, it's very helpful. But
Kind of amazing.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean,
Uh,
on paper, BC should have had a really tough time, given that obviously the first major outbreak in North America was in Washington State, which is right
yeah.
next door. But like, we get a crazy amount of traffic from Asia coming through Vancouver. Like, it just
Hmm.
so we thought for sure that it would be really, really bad, and it just wasn't. We got lucky.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, our provincial health officer knows what she's doing because she just happens to be her specialty, which is very, very lucky for us. But it's the same at the same time. It's luck. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. But anyway, the whole thing. It's a new normal that everybody's adjusting to, and that's really the work that Take This has been doing over the course of the last 6 months, and pivoting to doing more advocacy work around that and trainings around that,
Yeah.
and helping people to find ways of adjusting to this new normal on a sort of macro level, top down, in a macro level top down way. If we can change the structure towards the better policies from the top, then it really does help all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I'm so curious to know as much as possible about how things have changed, just for you and for Take This. But it's such a big thing. It's like anytime somebody talks about 2020, like there's an almost overwhelming number of things that have happened in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Never mind since the calendar year started. So
Yeah.
it's but I'm happy to hear that PAX Online went really well, and that you got a lot of global support from volunteers. That sounds wonderful.
We really did. And well, I mean, speaking of support, there's also you all. I mean, you've all been spectacular sponsors and supporters of our work for literally years now. I mean, we can't do that without the support of I mean, I feel like I'm going into the kind of the PBS thing of like, without sponsors like you, there's no way we could do this work without the viewers in your community. But it's true.
It is true, yeah. I don't think, I think because the Mindful Sloth Familiar launched on a bunch of different platforms, not on the exact same day, and so I think it's still wrapping up. But yeah, it's really, it feels good on our end to be able to do something like that, that contributes to a cause that we care about. So.
Well, and can we also just talk about how adorable the Mindful Sloth is? I mean, did Tristan Falcone not do an amazing job with the Mindful Sloth in that design?
Yeah, yeah. I think in game it was done by one of our artists, Georgia. I want to say she usually gets tasked with the cutest things to make. That seems to be her specialty. But yeah, worked with Tristan on it. It was a lot of fun, and we were happy to work with Tristan last year as well. So it was fun to be able to reconnect.
Oh, they're amazing. I've got
Yeah.
nothing but accolades to say about Tristan.
Yeah, yeah, tons of fun, and then of course, Walnut is in the game, so there's that too.
Walnut's fun.
Yeah,
Walnut's loads of fun.
yeah. So it was funny. I was typing up a bio for you because we have our night bot that handles our raffles and stuff in chat. But one of the other things that it does is it periodically posts like links or like if you like the channel, follow, that kind of stuff. And what it does is it also posts about our guest. And so I was typing up a bio, and I checked to Take This site. I'm like, you just have this one line, like this one line. I'm like, well, that's not enough So, but I found hat sommelier, which was one of the ones that I liked the most. I think that was on the Twitter. So I included that in there.
I think I have one of the higher ups at ReadPop to thank for that. I was in a meeting with him one day, and very specifically, this was Yug, and he saw some of the hats I had in the background, and I had a different one on at every meeting we had, and he just jokingly called me a hat sommelier. I had one for every outfit, and I was like, nope, perfect, adding to my bio right now. I've got a whole line of them for different seasons.
Well, I used to be somebody who had way too many jackets. At least some people would consider it too many jackets. In retrospect, I'm like, it wasn't that many, but it was a lot. And I'm like, I'm going to wear this one.
Talking?
Just different leather jackets, or just, I don't know. Back when I still cared about style. So this is in my 20s. I don't do it anymore. Like, I like dressing up when I get an opportunity to dress up or an excuse to do it, but it's not part of my day to day right now. It's all just like, is this clean enough? and then like taking the baby so my wife can sleep in, so.
Well, that's actually one of the cues I give myself to know that it's work time. I actually still put on work clothes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I've got the vest going, then that means I'm in Dr. B mode.
Yeah.
And I take the vest, the ties off, and although I did loosen up, I'm not wearing ties every day to work now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Interesting.
Well, it gets hot in a small office.
It's true, actually. Yeah. Especially when you're depending on what your computer setup is like. As soon as you start working with lighting and mics and soundboards and stuff, the temperature just starts going up.
Yeah.
The streaming room just happens to be in the most vented part of the office, so it's cold in here. Even though I'm wearing a t-shirt, it's cold.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the place that we currently live, there's no direct central air coming in here. I would really like there to be more air circulation, but you know what? I have my own office that's separate. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to have my own workspace.
And on the note of workspaces and transition, what do you have an idea of what yours and Take This's approach is going to be moving forward? I can't imagine what you just did with PAX Online is going to be the last time you do something like that.
No, I hope not. One of the things people don't necessarily realize is that an in-person AFK room takes between 4 months to a year to plan. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to make it look like nothing's going on. And if everything goes right, it should look like nothing's going on. And again, kudos to our AFK program manager, Elizabeth Flanagan, and our community manager, Dr. Kelly Dunlap. They, in about a month, converted our whole program to this online approach. And we are not going to see that wasted. No. As conventions continue to be, as we continue to be seeing online conventions, we want to be able to bring that and just support all the people in our community.
I'm glad to hear it. It seems like there's a very good chance that a huge component of many events moving forward is going to be something that's online. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to see that this is something that Take This was able to pivot and take on, and that you were able to have a space to participate in a very meaningful way still, without having necessarily physical AFK rooms all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to note is, you and I have talked about this before, and I'm very public about my autism. the having an online format with a form of what's called asynchronous communication is also really helpful for very frequently for a lot of us who have various cognitive processing issues. The ability to sit with a message in an online format and respond, taking the time to sort of move past the as part of my autism, I also struggle with something called Alexithymia, which is a really fancy way of saying I don't know what I'm feeling a lot of the time. And so the way I just say it is emotions are just loud. I can't tell what they are, but they're just loud. And having the time to sort of process and move past the sort of loudness of the feelings and get and talk about those feelings in a way that doesn't have the pressure of face-to-face communication is a godsend to so many people who came into the AFK room.
I was wondering about that when the idea of an online one first came up, because I know that being in person isn't always someone's preference.
Yeah, it's for some of us with literal social disabilities, it is an interesting challenge at times. And having an online format ends up being a really fantastic social accommodation for a lot of folks who, again, have various cognitive and or verbal processing issues.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So it's advantageous in a lot of ways. It's really wonderful.
That's cool. It never crossed my mind that it could be advantageous in some ways, because transitioning to so much remote / online has been so inconvenient in so many ways that the benefits can sometimes just not feel as evident.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we try and remind people is that there's advantages and disadvantages to anything. And, you get in-person communication. Yeah, you get a lot of that subtext and a lot of that nonverbal communication that is so valued by so many and is, well, frankly, the norm. But then again, there's a lot of folks with a lot of things to contribute who may not have the ability to do that sort of thing, and giving them the platform in which to interact that capitalizes on their strengths. It becomes, like I said, a really advantageous thing to maybe even bring out talents that we didn't see before as readily.
Before I forget, the last time you were on, we were talking about developing I want to say the Psychomancer was the name of the cleric domain.
Yeah.
And so how did that go? I'm very curious, because it sounded like it was still very much an in progress thing this time last year, and because you had just recently at that time started on Clinical Role, and you were
it's been a while since we've talked.
Yes, and we were talking about so we talked a little bit about Clinical Role, which was just starting, and we talked a little bit about developing it was a campaign where you were facing your demons, and I'm very curious how that went.
So that tells me it has been longer than a year since we've talked, because we released that one shot in June 2019.
Oh,
This year has just been 10 years.
Maybe we didn't even talk last year. Maybe I'm thinking of the year before.
Yeah, I think that was September 2018.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. It's been a while. So we finished it. And it's a fantastic one-shot D&D adventure that I co-wrote with Bill Benham over at Wizards of the Coast, Hannah Rose, who's a fantastic community author in the DMs Guild and does freelance editing work as well. And we created this one-shot module called Gardens of Fog, in which you are transported by a psychomancer, take this as mascot, into the mind of an afflicted friend. And it's a very role-play heavy module where you are interacting with physical manifestations of both her anxiety and her depression. And what's really cool is on the back end of that is we ended up creating a subclass, cleric, a mind domain subclass for the psychomancers to essentially be like the therapists of the D&D world.
And it seems likely that if we're going to dive deep into D&D, there are likely to be a lot of adventurers who have lasting trauma after their adventures. because
Yes.
there's a lot of like, never mind just like truly horrific creatures. Like I can only imagine like, we play D&D in the context of a game, but like I would never want to have lived through any of the experiences any of my characters have been through ever.
No. Fantasy is fun because it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we wanted to do with this module was demonstrate ways that you can thematically approach mental health topics without trying to basically be a therapist, because you should never try and be a therapist for your friends. One, most people are not therapists, and even if you are a licensed therapist, you don't want to be a therapist to your friends.
Yeah.
And so this idea of helping people, going out of your way to be your friend's therapist at the D&D table, no, don't do that. Just have a fun game, have a really good game. But there still, if mental health themes like, loss or sorrow or even fear or sadness, those are things you want to incorporate into your story. There's a lot of cool ways to do that. And so that's one of the things we set out to do with that module, was demonstrate ways of exploring those themes without, being therapy, because don't do therapy with your friends.
And now that that's been released, like maybe it had just come out last time we were talking, but I know we didn't dive very deeply into it because I had more questions about it, and I think we probably just run out of time or something.
I will send you a copy of it.
Oh, for sure. And I'm excited to read it because it just sounds fascinating to me. But since that's come out and since the Mind Domain has been released, has that led to you seeing a use for this where you could potentially do more things like it, or like did you get a lot of feedback about it and how it was for people to experience? Like I'm just curious where that went.
Well, the feedback we've gotten has been almost universally positive. It has, because it does directly put you in this helping mindset to literally save a friend from the dungeon that she's created in her own head. And or I shouldn't say that she's created, but that has manifested due to the intervention of external sources. But yeah, it's inspired. I would love to do something like this again. If Bill or Hannah or anybody wants to get together and do this, then that's great. One of the things I should mention to everybody in the chat is it is a charity module for Take This. So if you go on the DM's Guild and you purchase Gardens of Fog, almost all of that money goes directly to support Take This's mission. So we got, shout out to One Bookshelf and D&D Beyond on that one. They've been incredibly supportive.
That's very cool. I didn't realize that. Don't send it to me. I'll go buy it afterwards. I didn't realize that's where it ended up. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's over on the DM's Guild. Everybody's just been tremendously supportive with all of that, and it's a great way of sort of thinking about mental health a little bit differently within the game.
And I love that it's RP heavy because over the course of the pandemic, I went from playing in a one D&D campaign that was probably monthly games we got to play because of how hard it was for us to see each other in person, and then another campaign where I played pretty regularly, to doing neither of those and only DMing 2 different campaigns each week. Which I'm really enjoying, except for the part where I accidentally name dropped the wrong big bad in the wrong campaign, and then the next session I'm like, I need to retcon. I said the name of the bad guy from the other campaign. It's actually this one. Sorry.
Did I say Tarask? I didn't mean Tarask. Sorry, you're all level 7. My apologies.
No. I was supposed to say Dargothoth, because I know that nobody who plays my games watches me on Twitch, so I can talk about it. Dargothoth, which is one of the most dangerous Draco Liches ever to have existed, and hasn't been seen, I think, since maybe 2E or 3E. And instead of saying that, I said Velsharoon, which is also a dangerous demi-lich, but used to be the god of necromancy, but is now has fallen from the pantheon, is considered deceased. I'd taken the time to look for some lore deep cuts to try and have some really interesting things, and so that when I say something to my D&D nerd friends, they don't immediately know what it is, and they're like, what? And they look it up on their phone afterwards or something. But then to get them mixed up, I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Oops.
Yeah. But
Sorry about that panic-inducing slip of the tongue. What
Yeah.
I really meant was a gelatinous cube.
I love gelatinous cubes.
So do I.
The one when it showed up on in the movie Onward. I don't know if you watched Pixar's Onward.
I did. I
Just
just
when it
recently,
showed up, it made me irrationally happy. I
Me
just
too.
like cheered and jumped up because I was like watching it at home because I didn't see it in the theater. I watched it on like Disney Plus or something, and I just like got so excited. My wife looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, this is just so great."
Oh, it was that was I will admit that I don't tend to watch most Pixar movies because they make me feel things a little too intensely. I have a lot of four-letter words I generally say to Pixar because their stories are just too good,
Yeah.
and I still haven't forgiven them for Up.
Ooh. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I knew about
Where-
the first 10 minutes of Up, and my friends were like, "Oh no, you're going to sob during the first 10 minutes." And they were right. But what they didn't tell me is the next 80, and I just didn't stop. I was like, "Oh my god. It's an adventure book."
Yeah,
And
it was good, but I was not expecting or prepared for it when I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, neither was I. And Bing Bong. Oh god. From Inside Out. Oh god, Bing Bong. But
I was
Onward.
actually surprisingly okay with that one because
Really?
as soon as he showed up, I'm like, it's Pixar. They're totally killing him. I'm not going to get attached. Like I was just like, no, he was the epitome of a character that they created to kill. But it was the rest of when they started to understand more complex emotion later on in the film was when it got me.
Oh, yeah.
that you could be both joyful and sad at the same time. You could be somber. You can all that stuff. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, no, I know. I got to thank that film for a lot of kids being able to name 5 of the 6 basic emotions.
Yeah, what a great film.
It's great. But yeah, Onward. Oh, I loved Onward. That was so great. I was so pumped throughout the entirety of that movie. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, just leading into our lockdown, one of our developers, Peter, went and saw it, and he came into work on Monday, and they're like, "What was the highlight of your weekend?" He's like, "I saw Onward, and it's the best movie ever made." We were like, "Whoa, what?" Everybody's like, "Pardon?" He's like, "Best movie ever." We're like, "Okay, Peter," and then everything shut down. We're like, I guess nobody's going to the movies. And then Disney's like, we're going to put it on Disney Plus. And then everybody started watching it. And you could tell in our like corporate, a company chat, every time somebody saw it, they're like, oh, they're so great. Like, it's like, yeah, this like big wall of text about people loving it. Yeah, it was a blast. And if you haven't seen it, chat, I highly, highly recommend it. It was,
Oh yeah,
it was
Onward's
great.
amazing. Onward's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. What a great film.
Well, they always do such a good. I mean, name a bad Pixar movie, frankly. As much
Bad
as I'm
Pixar
like,
movie?
you make me feel things.
I'd have to remember which ones are Pixar, because I'm starting to get them mixed up now that they actually have reasonable competition sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I know there's at least one I didn't like, but they're pretty consistently strong. I think, the last one I watched before Onward was Coco, and it was just devastating. It was so good.
I just watched that 2 days ago.
Yeah,
I just saw it for the first time 2 days ago.
yeah, just
Still feeling things.
Yeah, that was. It was. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups where we talk about like what was the top 10 movies of the year kind of stuff, and because nobody's going to any movies this year and movies aren't really coming out this year, just spending a lot of time thinking about what the best movies of the last 10 years were for each genre of film and animated films and all that stuff. And Coco is a very strong contender for my favorite one.
Best movies in the last 10 years.
Yeah. It's a hard list because like last year you're like, oh, it's these things. Like it's not hard to figure out. But when you compare it to like, Inception was like 10 years ago, just as an example. And it's...
No, it was actually, I think Inception was 2008.
Was it 2008?
Something like that.
I could have sworn it was like
actually longer than 10 years
2010.
ago. No, I think it... No, it's a
Yeah,
while
2010.
ago. Oh, well done. Okay,
Yeah.
you'd beat me at movie trivia here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like some of mine because especially during the pandemic, I've been looking for familiarity, and so I've been watching a lot. I haven't been watching as many new movies. I've been watching a lot of my favorite movies from the past 90 years.
Fair enough. I didn't realize you were that old, but that's awesome.
I was born at a very young age, and I was watching movies even before then. I was very clever.
Yeah.
No, one of my absolute favorite movie series was a series of 6 movies that was done between 1934 and 1947.
Oh well, I'm now I need to know what were they?
The Thin Man movies with William
Oh.
Powell and Myrna Loy, one of the
Okay.
best on-screen romantic pairings in the history of cinema.
Yeah, I've heard of them but never seen them.
Oh, they're brilliant and really transgressive for the time in terms of her characterization. Because in the first movie, she was going drink for drink with her husband.
Huh.
Yeah. No, William Powell and Myrna Loy, and their on-screen chemistry was just amazing. Just absolutely amazing.
I noticed that I stopped watching dramas, both television dramas and film dramas, about a quarter of the way into this year. And like I will every once in a while, but if I know that it's going to be something that's really intense, I just don't feel like it right now. Although
plan for it.
Though I did watch, because Netflix put a 4K version of Lawrence of Arabia on it, so I watched that, and it was just, I mean, those old 70mm films, you can blow that up to any size. You can blow it up to 8K if you want. It doesn't matter, and it's just it's weird getting used to the audio being mono, and so like mono converted to stereo, and like you're listening to it, you're like, wow, the sound balance of this is just not amazing, but like it's an absolute masterpiece in every conceivable other way. And like you watch it, you're like, how did Peter O'Toole not win Best Actor for this? You're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I've just seen this like perfect film where they used every frame of film they even shot for it. You're like, how could he have lost? And then you go look it up, and Gregory Peck won for Atticus, playing Atticus that year, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Fair play to you.
Yeah.
Okay, but how good did Omar Sharif look in 4K?
Incredible, yeah. And he's got such an amazing voice, right? You could listen to him talk for hours.
God, yes.
Yeah, he did some great narrative work. I think I saw a National Geographic film about Egypt at the Nat Geo Theater here back when you could still go to it, and he narrated it. And it was just wonderful to listen to. It was just
yeah. He's one of those people. I was like, okay, read the phone book to me.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Him, Alan Rickman, James Earl Jones. Morgan Freeman. Let's get them good voices.
So many great voices. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's get that going. That's awesome.
That would be cool. Just need to master necromancy, and it'll happen.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. James Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman are still blessedly with us.
They are. Omar Sharif and what's the other one?
Oh,
a couple of them are gone. It's sad. I was also thinking of Mako, the Japanese actor. He was in Conan the Barbarian.
From the Kurosawa films.
Yeah, but he narrated Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he voiced Uncle Iroh on The Last Airbender, one of the best characters of all time.
Huh.
Yeah, all the same actor. But yeah,
okay.
he passed away while they were making The Last Airbender, and sad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But another amazing voice. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. No, I'm going to get... The Last Airbender is one of those things I haven't watched yet, and I'm a little ashamed of that fact, because that's the reaction I get every time, and I know the chat's about to explode with, like, you haven't seen
They
what?
just put all of it on Netflix.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Because people won't stop telling me that they just put it all on Netflix. I'm like, I've seen it. But it deserves the accolades that it has. It's an animated show for kids, but like is actually really beautiful and has wonderful character development over the course of several seasons, and has a follow-up series that
Legend of Korra
that is also very, very good, but is different. People argue about which one they like more. I'm like, why? You just watch both of them, and then you've seen both. Like, it's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful cartoons.
Well, what I've been spending our viewing time during the quarantine doing is my girlfriend has not seen any Star Trek series, any at all, and we are almost through Next Gen.
There are hundreds of episodes of this Oh,
I know, I know, and
And
I'm telling her how good Deep Space Nine is, and I can't wait to get her to Deep Space Nine.
oh man, so did you start with the original series and watch
Oh
that,
God,
and
no,
then
no,
okay,
no. I know her taste well enough to know she wouldn't get to the next gen if we started with the original series.
fair enough. Yeah, they the cartoon of the original series, because they did a cartoon with the actual original series cast doing all the
Forgot about
voices. That showed up on, I think, Netflix as well. Canada has a streaming service called Crave that's only in Canada, which is where we get is where we get all of our HBO stuff for the most part.
Letterkenny.
But it's got HBO and HBO Max, of course. But then also, it's one of the things that they purchased was all of Star Trek, everything.
Nice.
So all the shows, every series are always on it. The animated shows, even Lower Decks is on it. It's great.
Which I need to still watch, but Crave's where Letterkenny it airs, right?
Yeah. It was on Crave first, and I think it's on Hulu in the U.S.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, Letterkenny.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I love that show.
So do I.
Yeah, it's very Canadian. there's some pretty very distinctly Canadian jokes and stuff in it that I'm like, I have a hard time picturing anybody who
I had to look a few things up.
would recognize, unless they'd actually spent a lot of time in rural Ontario or something. But,
but there's a lot of interpersonal dynamics that actually remind me of the very small rural community in which I went to high school.
Oh yeah, aside from the distinctly Canadian vernacular for a lot of it, it could be any small rural town.
Oh yeah.
As somebody who grew up quite a bit more rurally than Victoria, BC, there are a lot of things on that show that they've said. I'm like, oh god, my dad says that, like kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just it's great.
Oh yeah, it's really great to go through it. Yeah, but I can name like, who were the Skids? I know who they were. And when I was in high school, who were the Hicks? Yeah, I know who they were.
Yeah. Oh god, love that show. Oh man, I'm actually no, they would normally probably be having another season coming out around now, but
probably.
But I imagine it's delayed.
I imagine so.
Everything else. Although a third season of Star Trek Discovery starts in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. It got delayed, so unsurprisingly, but they had filmed it. So I want to say like October 17th or something is when it starts back up.
No, that's awesome.
I think.
No, I've got to catch up. I haven't watched that much yet because I've got to get Jessica caught up on everything else. I can't wait to get her to Voyager.
Yeah. Voyager's my wife's favorite one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's amazing. It's campy while still being awesome. And I mean, who doesn't love Janeway?
I like Janeway. Voyager has the unfortunate distinction of having a few of the characters on Star Trek that I like the least on it. Namely, Neelix, Tom Paris, and Harry Kim are awful characters.
I was just about to say Neelix.
Neelix with his really toxic relationship with Kes.
Oh God,
and just how Harry Kim was just this Mary Sue half the time, and I don't know, and then I just didn't care for those characters. Like as soon as they developed more, and it became about like the relationship between Paris and Torres, and it got better, but. Still can't stand Neelix, actually. When that actor shows up in other things and I hear his voice, I'm like, I just cringe. I'm like, ugh. Which is probably not what he would want to hear, and I would never, tell him that. But it's just like, I just wince. And I hated the way Voyager ended. That was, that non-ending, cheesy Deus Ex Machina just bugged me.
Yeah, that was a little...
Not my favorite. Whereas Next Generation, perfect ending. Flawless.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely flawless.
Oh, God, yeah.
The only thing they got wrong is that, as it turns out, when Patrick Stewart got that old, he didn't actually look that bad. The makeup in it took it too far. He actually looks pretty good right now.
Well, it's all those. I mean, if you remember the movies, especially First Contact, that scene where he's literally just like doing held chin-ups to escape the gas below above the Borg Queen, and I'm like, Patrick Stewart, get it, man? What are you, like 50 right now? Good God, I can't do that.
Yeah, that was a good point. I forgot all about that. Oh man. Well, I could talk about Star Trek all day, very easily. As it turns out, it's actually time for us to wrap up.
Amazing, right?
Is there anything you would like to shout out or talk about before we shut it down?
Make sure everybody please go to takethis.org. There's a lot of really fantastic things on there, including an ever-growing list of mental health resources. We've got some fantastic expert articles on there for how to look out for your mental health, how to even sometimes help others. Make sure to follow Take This on Twitter at @takethisorg, and support us any way you can, whether it's a mindful sloth, whether it's another familiar in the future, whether it's Gardens of Fog, whether it's direct donations. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we cannot exist without your help.
The Adventure DMs Guild.
Yep, Gardens of Fog on the DMs Guild, and it's been real fun for a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been our show for October 1st, 2020. Thank you all for joining us for today, for participating in the Idle Champions and D&D communities. You guys are all awesome. This show exists because of a lot of amazing folks behind the scenes, including our producer, moderator, Sasha, our executive producer, Erica, our partners at Dungeons & Dragons, and of course, Dr. B for joining me. Take care, everybody, and we will catch you tomorrow with Griddle Champions. Cheers.